Hey guys, what's up? It's Becky. So today I want to talk about my favorite books of 2018. I always like to wait until the year is like finally over before I go through my list and figure out my favorites, because I'm just afraid that like in the last week I'm gonna read my favorite book of the year, and like you never know. So now that it's like 2019, I thought we would delve into my favorite books of last year. I read a total of 43 books, and out of all those books that I read, I have 7 favorites. So in the number 7 slot, I have The Diviners by Libba Bray. The Diviners is essentially a supernatural murder mystery story set in the 1920s. We follow our main character, Evie, who gets shipped off to New York City after like some sort of incident, and she goes to live with her uncle Will, and her uncle is like the owner of this museum that like is all about the occult and like supernatural things, and Evie actually has like some sort of supernatural power. It's like what got her into trouble. And then while this is happening, there's a serial killer on the loose, and her uncle Will is like brought into it because they're using like occult symbols, and so Evie gets wrapped up in that. I feel like that's such a basic synopsis for this because there's so much going on. I did not realize until I started reading this that this is like an ensemble cast. There are so many different characters and storylines that we follow, and it just really captured me. I love this book for like a number of reasons. It has a lot of the things that I love in books. So I love ensemble casts. I also love the era of like the 1920s, and I think Libba Bray does like an excellent job of like creating the atmosphere. Like I feel like I'm there. She uses a lot of like 1920s lingo to really like transform you there. Some people say it's annoying, but like I kind of loved that aspect of it. It just like brought me more into the world. Also, she does such a great job. Like all the spooky, scary scenes are like terrifying because she creates this like atmosphere, and you're like, oh my god, holy crap, holy crap. I hear a lot on BookTube that The Diviners is like an underrated series, and that if you haven't picked it up again, you're sleeping on it because it's so good. And like all of those people are right. If you haven't read this, you should, because it's just so good. The characters are so lovable. It's diverse too, and like the mystery element, and like it's scary. Like what more do you want? I don't know why I haven't picked up the sequel yet, but I really need to get on that, because the end of this book, it like sort of wraps things up, but it like leaves more to be explored, and I need to know what happens next. I want to know what happens to our characters. I love them so much. So number 7. So number 6 on my list is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Dark Artifices series, like in the Shadowhunter world. So let me break down my history with the Shadowhunters books. I'm not one of those people that like is crazy about all of them. So I read the Infernal Devices trilogy first, was obsessed with those. Took me forever to actually finish City of Bones. Like I just like wasn't really into it. The characters just like weren't like for me. And then I heard about the Dark Artifices, and I have a coworker and a lot of people say that to get the whole experience you gotta read everything. So I went back and read all of the Mortal Instruments books, which were okay, just to read this. So I'm really happy that this book was like really good, because I read a lot just to get here, and I'm so glad I got here because I really love this book. I love the characters. It's hard to talk about this book without spoiling everything else, and like I don't know how blind you want to go in, but this book takes place after the events of City of Heavenly Fire, and we follow Emma Carstairs and the Blackthorn family on like adventures in the, I think it's the LA Institute. I think my favorite part about this book was the characters. I think the main reason I struggled with the Mortal Instruments series is that I just didn't really connect with the characters, but I love Emma and the Blackthorn family. Like I just love them so much, so it made me so invested because I needed to know what happened. What I also really like about this is that we like sort of delve into like more of the politics of the Shadowhunter Society. We like talk about the dark bits, like everything's not so happy and like great. Like I don't know, it's definitely a little darker than like the Mortal Instruments series. I liked that part of it because it was interesting. All of like the politics between the Shadowhunters and the fairies I lived for. And Mark is like my favorite. I'm obsessed with him. I mean, I'm obsessed with the Blackthorn family. Sorry, that's my heater. I'm obsessed with the Blackthorn family in general, but like Mark is just so funny. He's like, just jumps off the page in hilarity. Another side note while we're here, I think that like the characters in the Mortal Instruments series who I like wasn't like crazy about, I think they like read so much better in this book because like it's not following their perspective. Like Jay's always annoyed me a little bit, but he reminds me of Thor. Like, you know, Thor 1, Thor is like taken really seriously, and then you get to the Avengers and he's like kind of a joke but also a badass. That's Jace. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. This was great. I'm loving Lord of Shadows. I have Queen of Air and Darkness down there. Basically, I'm just trash. Such trash for this series and like the Shadowhunter world, I guess. I'm really looking forward to the second spin-off series that takes place with like the Infernal Devices characters, because those people are like my loves. Anyway, I would highly recommend this book. I know to read this book you have to read a lot of other things to like read this book. I think you should just do whatever you want. I think it's nice knowing everything, but I highly recommend the Infernal Devices trilogy if you want to just spoil everything that happens in the Mortal Instruments series just to pick up this. I wouldn't judge you, okay? Number 5 on my list is a book that I don't see a lot of people talking about, and I want more people to read because this was just so cute. And I'm talking about Always Never Yours by Emily Wibberley and Austin. He has like a long name, Austin Sigmund Broca. This book follows Megan Harper. She's convinced that like she's the girl that guys date before they meet the love of their life. This happened with like this dude that she dated that she like really liked, and then they broke up and he ended up like getting into a relationship with her best friend, and they're basically like true love now. So Megan feels like she's cursed with love. And she is an aspiring like theater director. She's very involved in like her theater club, and she wants to go to this college to major in directing. But the caveat is that to get into their directing program, one of the requirements is that she has to have like an acting role. So she tries out for her theater's Shakespeare production of Romeo and Juliet. She's like, I want the nurse. I think it's like Lady Montague. She wants like the smallest part ever. And she ends up getting the lead and drama ensues. So I picked up this book for like one main reason, maybe two. So the main reason I picked this up is because I'm a total theater nerd and I love books about like high school theater, and I was like, this sounds perfect. And I love a cute romance, and Shakespeare's cool too. So let's pick this up. And I was not expecting to like be as blown away by it as like I was. Like, this was just so cute. The relationship in this book just like hit me in the feels. Like, I was rooting for the couple to happen, and like I thought this book did such a good job at portraying like a high school theater club, because the dynamic reminded me of some of the dynamics in my theater club. Basically, this was just adorable. I love it. I like need to get a copy so I can reread it. This book is one of those books that just made me so happy after I read it, and I'm like still a little high off that happiness. I think this is the book I've read most recently on this list, and I'm still like, oh, I loved it. It was so great. These authors have like a book coming out next year that's sort of a retelling about the taming of the shrew, and I'm like in. If you're looking for a cute fluffy romance, I definitely recommend picking this one up and giving it a try. It was so good. So number 4 on my list is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. So Maureen Johnson's one of those authors that I forget how much I love her books until I read another one. So I really enjoyed The Name of the Star series. Oh, I guess it's called the Shades of London series by her. Maureen, is the 4th book ever going to be a thing? Like, I just need to know. Thanks. Back to Truly Devious, which definitely has a sequel, thank God. I just really like her writing, and she comes up with these like really interesting premises. This one is no different. This book follows Stevie Bell, who's like a crime aficionado. Like, she's obsessed with like cold cases, and one cold case she's particularly obsessed with is the one of Ellingham Academy. So Ellingham Academy is this like private school up in Vermont, and the founder, Albert Ellingham, his wife and daughter were kidnapped. The only clue left behind is this letter that's like mocking and describes like a bunch of murder, signed Truly Devious. This case was never solved. Nobody really knows what happened. And Stevie, this is one of the cases that she's like obsessed with. So Stevie decides to apply for Ellingham Academy. She gets in. Her big goal with going to this like elite private school is to figure out what the crap happened to the founder's wife and daughter and like everything. And things get interesting though, because while Stevie is attending school and doing the whole class thing, Truly Devious makes a return. My favorite thing about this book is the dual timeline. So you follow Stevie like going to school and like the revisit of Truly Devious, but you also follow a timeline that explores what happened all those years ago when the founder's wife and daughter were kidnapped. Like you follow that thread too. It's interesting to like see them both, and they haven't fully like connected yet, but like I'm waiting to see how they like connect, other than like it's at the same school. Like I'm just so invested. Both timelines are like super captivating. Like I want to know what happened then, and I want to know what's going on now, and like I just need to know everything. Maureen Johnson does like such an excellent job at like pace. Like I feel like I was on the edge of my seat and like kept turning the pages because I just needed to know what happened next. I've read this book so quickly, and the worst part about it is that it has a cliffhanger ending, and as soon as I read it, I think I shouted, "No! I can't do this!" I'm gonna pull up my Twitter and tell you my reaction when I finished the book. I tweeted it because I was so upset at the cliffhanger ending. Not like that it was bad, I just needed more. Found it. So this is my tweet from when I finished the book. Just finished Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and holy fuck, that ending. That was in all caps. Why must I wait for the next book to come out? Crying faces. I guess that wasn't that interesting. Needless to say, I loved this book. Like, I really like the characters, and the dual timeline really fascinated me. And like the setting is just like so interesting. Like it's this private boarding school that's like secluded, and they have all these like twisty pathways, and it's like a really eccentric place. And Stevie and her friends are like just fun and like cool characters, and like I want to know what happens with them. They all like are really good at like one thing, and it's like cool to see them all coming together to like try to solve this mystery. And I just need the next book. Thankfully, I don't have to wait too long. It comes out this month. So if you, dear viewer, pick up this book, just know you're not gonna have to wait as long as I have for the next one. Like you can just go right into it, which you'll be thankful for. I just really loved it. It was so good. So now we're in the top 3 of my favorite books of the year. So in the 3rd slot, we have a book you've probably heard of. I picked it up because of all of the hype, and I was surprised at how much I liked it. And I'm talking about Nevermore, The Trials of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. So I'm not really a middle grade person, but everyone kept talking about how great this book was, and the premise sounded interesting, so I had to pick it up. If you're not aware, the premise is you follow this girl, Morgan Crow, who is cursed. She's like born on the unluckiest day of the year, and so on her 11th birthday, she's going to die. And everyone knows this, and they like actually blame her for all of the bad luck that happens in like her town, which is kind of depressing. So on her 11th birthday, this dude, Juniper North, swifts her away to the land called Nevermore to be his candidate for the Wondrous Society. And Morgan's like, this is great. Like, I didn't want to die. This world is super cool. But to stay, she has to like complete the trials and get into the Wondrous Society, which is easier said than done. I'm a big fan of like quirky books, and like this was just so quirky. Juniper is like the owner of this like hotel that has all these like weird rooms, and like a giant cat is like the housekeeper, I think. And I just loved all of the quirky aspects. On top of that, the character is really strong. I like thought Morgan was like really compelling, and I just found the world like fascinating fascinating. This is another book that just made me so happy as I read it, and I just wanted to keep reading because the adventure scenes were just so much fun and I had such a blast reading it. I have Wondersmith on my TBR shelf because I need to find out what happens next. The first book ends on not really a cliffhanger, but it changes the game, and I just need to know what happens next. It was really cute, and I'm not someone who generally reads middle grade, but I absolutely adored this. Highly recommend picking it up. Even if you're not into middle grade, give it a try because it might surprise you. I feel like I'm doing a bad job at describing these books, but some of them, I just want to say they made me really happy. That's why they're on this list. So we're at my top 2, and I really think my top 2 sort of epitomizes the kinds of books that I like. They're both extremely different books, but ever since I read these books, I cannot stop thinking about them. Number 2 on this list is Nice Try, Jane Sinner by Leanne Oakley. I really love quirky books that are hilarious, but also talk about a deeper issue while being hilarious. And I also really like books that are set in the real world but don't necessarily follow real life. I think this book does such a good job of being real, but I'm not on a reality show. Let me get into the premise so you can understand a little bit more of what I'm talking about. This book follows Jane Sinner, who was recently expelled from her high school. Her parents want her to go to community college so that she can finish her high school degree. So she agrees on the caveat that she gets to live off camp, not at home, I say off campus as if her house is her dorm, which it's not. She wants to move out of her house, and to do that she signs up for this student-run reality show called House of Orange. It's basically like Big Brother. And so Jane first signs up just for the free room and board, but then she is no, I gotta win. Hilarity, drama, and I guess adventure ensues. So let me break down why this book was so amazing. 1, Jane Sinner is just so awesome. She's such a cool character, and I thought her voice was really strong. Part of the reason I could not put this book down is because I loved hearing Jane talk about things and see life through her eyes. She was just so cool. The second reason is I love the premise of this girl being on a student-run reality show. I was a film major in college, and the student film aspect of this was just really fun. And when you do a student film, you got to do some low budget things, and this was some low budget stuff here. A little not low budget because I think the kid is rich, but there were definitely some of those low budget film aspects that were just fun. Third is it's hilarious. I feel a lot of books that say they're funny are not always funny. Maybe I'm a little too harsh, but I don't always laugh out loud. This one was laugh out funny. It was hilarious. Honestly, one of the funniest books I've ever read, which is saying a lot because I'm a critic on comedies. And also the discussions that is had in this book are just so real. It talks about depression in this way that is really conversational, but it's also so raw and real, but at the same time being really genuine and conversational. This book talks a little bit about religion and falling out of faith. Jane's parents are really religious, and she sort of falls out of faith, and so the conversations revolving that topic were just so interesting. And again, conversational, real, but not preachy, and just so interesting. There's so much more to this book than just her being on this reality show. And then on top of that, there were twists and turns. This book goes places I was not expecting, and so it has that also element of surprise, oh my god, wait, I don't know what's gonna happen next. I feel in contemporaries you're oh, I know how this is gonna end. You're sort of seeing how you get there, but you sort of know the path it's gonna take. This book, there's a point and I was holy fuck, I don't know where this is going. I just had a blast reading this. I really want Leanne Oakley to make a sequel because I think there is sequel potential, and I just want another book with Jane and her friends, and I want to see where things go next, and I would love a sequel. It's not gonna get one, but I would like one. I cannot recommend this book enough. I know the writing style may not be for everyone, but I really think it adds to the comedy, and Jane's voice is just like so much fun and like captivating. Like if you don't like the writing style, you should like push through a little bit and like see if you get into it, because I was obsessed. I just can't stop thinking about it too. Every time I think about it, I'm like, ugh, there's just so much into it. It had layers, and like it was like an onion. There's just so much. I feel like if I reread it, there would be more I would like take away, because I feel like the conversations they have are just like so interesting, and I love this book. I can't wait to see what the author writes next, and I will 100% pick it up, because this was great and a debut novel. It came out this year and I loved it. How many times can I say I loved it? I loved it. Please pick this up. So Jane Sinner really represents that like really funny, quirky, like at the same time heartfelt book that like those kinds of stories I'm in love with. Now, the next book that I'm gonna talk about I think was literally made for me and covers the other thing I really love in stories. And I feel like not a lot of people have read it, or not a lot of people that like I follow on BookTube have read it. I want more people to read it because it was so good. Let me just reveal the book. So my favorite book of 2018 has to be The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. If you're in the UK, I think it's just The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. It has a very similar title to The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hugo, which is why they like had a slight change, because that book got really popular. I've read it, it's good, totally get why it's popular, but let's talk about Evelyn Hardcastle, which is a book that I'm pretty sure was like made for someone like me. I love complex plots. I love things that like play with like the timeline and structure, and this book did all of that in a like mind-blowing way. So I'm not going to give you a huge synopsis on this book. It's better to go in blind. All you need to know is that it is a murder mystery, and our main character, he has to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle in 8 days, and he like relives the same day over and over, but the catch is that he like is in a different person's body each time. And if he like can't solve the mystery by the 8th day, then it like his memories are erased and he starts all over again. So the first body that he wakes up in, he has like no idea what's going on. I honestly read a snippet of this book before I like fully picked it up. I was like, oh, the premise sounded so good, and I was like, and I was reading the first couple of pages and I was like, oh, this is like weird. I don't know what to make of this, because it's told in first person, and so the first couple pages, like the main character doesn't really know what's going on. He doesn't know like who he is, and it's just like very disorienting. So just push past the first like 50 pages and like, you know, get more into the book, because I promise it is such a twisty, turny book. I feel like complex plots are something that is really easy to mess up, and is something that like not everyone can do well. Stuart Turton knocks it out of the park. He does such a great job with all of these like different minds that we're in, and it's really cool because like depending on whose body the main character is in, he sort of takes on the traits of that body. So you get sort of like the main character, but also like the person that they're inhabiting, and it was just so cool. I could not put this book down as soon as I started it. I thought the structure was so interesting. I was like obsessed with this like mystery. I like needed to know what was going on, and I thought the twists were good, and I just was fascinated by like the premise, and the premise was so well executed, and I was just so fascinated by like this, I guess, kind of world that you're in. I feel like if Christopher Nolan ever wrote a book, it would look a little something like this. Side note, Christopher Nolan is like my favorite director of all time. I think Inception, Memento, The Prestige are genius. He has such an interesting mind, and I'm obsessed with how he like sees the world and the stories he makes. And this is the closest I've ever come to like reading something that reminded me of something that he made. I want them to make this a movie or a TV show, and I want him or his brother to direct it, because that would be amazing. Like, no one could do it other than them. This book was made for me, basically. Like, it took all of my love for like Christopher Nolan, and like I feel like that's what this book is. It just was so captivating. It's really hard to like go into everything without like spoiling things, and like I feel like I've already said too much, because it's definitely the kind of book that you want to go in blind. But if you like mystery thrillers that have like some sort of twist, this definitely has like a sci-fi element to it. It's not like typical, it's not like your domestic thriller, it's like its own thing. Basically, it's like if Christopher Nolan were to ever write a murder mystery, it would look something like this, I think. If any of that sounds interesting to you, please pick it up. It was just so good. I need to buy a physical copy, and I cannot wait for whatever this author puts out next. I will 100% read it. This is adult, by the way. If I did make that clear, this is an adult like mystery thriller thing. So those are all the books that I read in 2018. I feel like this video probably was longer than it needed to be. But you know, when you're talking about your favorite books of the year, you just get a little carried away. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these books. Let me know what your favorite books are of the year, so I know what I need to put on my TBR. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you with another video soon. Peace.